Hey gang, do you like annoying theme songs? Well, here you go.
He got into vintage audio a year ago, but there's a lot of things he still doesn't know, so he started up a channel on YouTube, and here he is now, the Vintage Newbie.
Hey gang, and welcome to another episode of The Vintage Newbie. Unless this is your first time here, then welcome to your very first episode of The Vintage Newbie. So if you have been here before, then maybe you've seen videos where I've talked about the Realistoc Minimus 7 speakers from Radio Shack. Well, I'm going to do so again today, but they're not the ones that I talked about before, nor are they the later evolved versions that I also talked about before, which were those RCA ones from the late 90s or early 2000s, something like that. No, the ones I have talked about before were these, the black metal ones, the 4029As, which had the serial number in the back there, or the model number in the back, rather, and also had the Bs and the Cs. Talked about the differences between those, how the A's and the Bs were better because they had the metal tweeter in front. I don't know if you can, you can kind of see it there. Whereas the C's had just the round part with a bunch of black circles going around it and did not have the metal rectangle part going around it. But there were other versions made as well. There were ones in silver cabinets, in white cabinets, and in walnut cabinets. And those are the ones I'll be discussing today, because I found a pair. Normally they go for, I don't know, like $80-$100 on eBay, something like that. I found a pair a mile away from me or so, and they were a lot less than that, less than half of that. So I immediately messaged the guy and drove on over and picked him up. I believe he was the original owner. He had them in really good shape. He just oiled them too, so they looked cool. They smelled divine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those and a matching subwoofer that I found about a week later, which I never, ever even knew existed. I knew these were around. I'd been on the lookout for them, and that's how I knew how much they normally go for and how good of a price that I luckily stumbled upon them. But I'd never heard a pair before. I had heard some things, or I'd read some things online where people were saying the walnut ones didn't sound as good as the metal ones, but then every now and then I'd hear someone say, no, the walnut ones sounded fuller and more vibrant because of the wood cabinets and the cloth grills, because these have the metal grills on them. But yeah, so first off, you can see the size is quite a bit different. If you put them top to bottom, bottom to bottom, the top is like that. And these can basically fit inside this one if you look at the back kind of cabinet there. Yeah, see? The grills on the walnut ones come off a lot easier. Like with these, you have to get some kind of tool to kind of fit it into one of these holes and pop it out. Or normally I just take like a pocket knife and sort of pop it out, because they're stuck in there, but there's also like a little kind of rubber goopy bloopy thing that kind of holds it in, like usually about 2, sometimes 3 or 4 spots. But they come out pretty easy. You just have to be careful and kind of prop them out. In fact, let me show you, in case anyone's ever looking to see how to remove the grills. And then you can just kind of pop that in there on one side and do it again on the other. And just be careful not to scratch anything or scuff anything. And then they just come right off like so, and there you go. And then you kind of pop it back on there and just sort of pat it back in. But I'll kind of keep these off if I'm doing a little comparison for you. Now, with the walnut ones, they're kind of like those Advents and Avids that I showed before, and also those Boston Acoustics. They just kind of pop right off. They've got little pegs on here that fit into the little holes in the corner, top and bottom. Got a neat little badge holder for the cool Realistoc label badge. Hey, I'm a speaker. And that is what they look like in the front. And this is what the other ones look like in the front. These are the A's, also the 4029 A's, so they have that cool looking tweeter. And I've actually got a pair of C's, and I can show you the tweeter on those too. Yeah, see, those have the same metal tweeter as well. Rubber surrounds, so they don't rot out like foam ones do. One sec. And actually, I forgot, I sold my C's quite a while ago because I was not too big a fan of the sound of them. Now the back of these are pretty similar to the metal ones. It's just got more of a wood cabinet than a metal one on the back, but these speaker terminals are the same. Both have little hangy hooks, both have stickers and stickers that identify the model number and say where they're made. These were made in Japan. These were made in Japan. The Japanese ones are said to sound better. I haven't heard any of the Korean or Malaysian ones, so I cannot compare them. But I did compare these walnut ones to the metal ones because I wanted to see if the rumors that I heard on the internet are true. And you know everything you read on the internet's true, right? So, I hooked up one walnut and one metal cabinet Minimus 7 to my Realistoc STA 225 receiver and played a couple of test songs that I usually play for testing receivers and speakers. One is In Bloom by Nirvana. And Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. And I found that, to my disappointment, the metal ones sounded better. The wood ones sound good, especially because I have them hooked up to the matching subwoofer, which is freaking awesome. But when I tested them side by side, switched back and forth between the metal and the wood one, the metal one did sound clearer. The wood one sounded a little bit muffled, but maybe without the subwoofer, it could just sound bassier. Maybe it needs the capacitors changed because it is 50 years old. But the metal ones are also around that age too, so maybe if I change the capacitors on both, then the metal ones would still sound better. Don't know. Guess I'll just have to change the capacitors. And I did buy one pair of new film capacitors, so I got to decide which speakers I'll put them in. But either way, the sound was not, I mean, it was noticeable, but not to where the walnut ones sounded bad, because I didn't really realize the sound until I compared them to the metal ones at the very same time. So sound wise, the metal ones win. Looks wise, the walnut ones win, because I mean, that's just fucking cool. It's like a big speaker in tiny size. And I think they're just neat. So I'll keep them both. Alright, so what's this subwoofer I was talking about? Let's go show you, because I can't really pick it up, because it's freaking huge and heavy. So it's on the floor. So to show you just how big this thing is, here's the Minimus 7 in front of the subwoofer. And actually here it is next to it. Yeah, this thing's pretty big. It's got some scratches on top, but I think if I hit it with some Howard Restore finish and some 4/0 steel wool, it should buff most of that right out. Now, this thing is quite large as well. 18 inches deep. 16 inches wide. Almost 13 inches tall. Luckily it fits under this table that my reel-to-reel is on. Let's take a look at the bottom. I can show you the actual speaker that's in there. Oh, and it does have this super cool Realistoc badge on the front. So, alright, flip this thing up. And there's the bottom of it. You got this 12-inch downward firing woofer. And this is how the speakers connect to it. You have the wires coming out of the receiver that plug in here, and then you have the wires coming out of the subwoofer to the speakers that go there. So that means that this woofer actually filters out some of the low frequencies from the speakers. So you don't just run it as a separate set of speakers. It works in tandem with the speakers, so that the, especially running like Minimus 7 speakers like that, those basically become tweeters and mid-range, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, it's not like the main speakers that I have on that receiver, but it is a good backup pair. Just like, yeah, if you want some realistic speakers, if you want some Minimus 7 speakers and you find that the regular ones are a bit lacking in bass and you don't feel like doing all these crossover modifications, try and find the subwoofer. Like I said, I'd never even heard of it before, and then someone mentioned it and I went on a hunt and I found one. There were like two on eBay that were like over $100 plus shipping, but I found one on Mercari that again was less than that, and I just like clicked to watch it, and then they made an offer that was half of that price. So yeah, it was got the subwoofer and the speakers for less than $100, which is pretty good for those. There is a version, an Optimus version, which was also Radio Shack, but it's not the wood veneer. It's like a black wood grain vinyl wrap, but it's about the same size, and those I've seen a couple of more that were available. One was like from some pawn shop in Iowa or Idaho or Ohio, one of those states up for like $30 or $40. So I'm not going to put a link to it because you have an internet, just look it up. It's some pawn shop in Des Moines, Dubuque, the Bears, I don't know. So if you can find one, yeah, pick it up. Why not? The sub is like super cool. I might run that to just some regular speakers anyway for an extra bit of oomph. But yeah, one thing that I have noticed, because I do have those run as like B speakers on my Realistic STA 225, the A speakers are the Avid Model 100s that I talked about in another video. And I've noticed if I switch back and forth between using the A and the B speakers, when I set it to the B speakers, I have to adjust the bass and treble one way, and then when I switch back to the 8, I have to adjust it another way. So yeah, if you're switching back and forth, you might have to adjust your tone controls and even the mid-range. I did as well. But anyhow, you've got your own stereos, and if you find it, just adjust your shit until you get the right sound. Okay? Thanks for tuning in. I've only got like 1 or 2 more of these that I'm going to be doing, then I'm going to be out of equipment. So thanks for joining me on this ride of hi-fi vintage stereo equipment. Have a blessed day.